and I realized maybe I should have done that. You never know. Hello, this is Rael, and today we will talk about what you should pack for fieldwork in Africa, specifically in East Africa. In my case, I went to Ethiopia. You know, I'm doing this just because when I was looking for information about specifically packing for fieldwork as a researcher, there was hardly anything on the internet. Like I looked on Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, of course. There was nothing, or hardly anything. Mostly you can find packing tips for safari. If you're looking for this specific combo of doing fieldwork and in East Africa or in Africa in general, it's trickier to find information. So this is why I want to share exactly what I brought, what I regret bringing, what I wish I had packed, and what you should not bring. Of course, this is my point of view as a researcher, as a fairly young woman, but in her 30s, so with some experience. So some research-related stuff that you might want to bring depending on your kind of research. In my case, as a linguist, I decided to bring one camera, which is a Nikon B500 Coolpix. This is very good for photographs, especially using the zoom. A smartphone, a Kobo P80, which were good for taking videos and pictures. So I would set up both during my interviews in some cases. In some other cases, I would use the phone just as a recording device for the audio. I brought a microphone, a small tripod, which is the one that I'm using right now, that has the bendy legs, which was quite good, even though maybe I regret not bringing the bigger tripod. Then, of course, as a field worker, you need a notebook, pens and pencils, and you might want to have them in your bag at all times. Then, even when I wasn't planning on having interviews and recording people, I always had a pair of headphones with the small microphone with me. And finally, some obvious ones like a laptop, all chargers. My Nikon camera doesn't have just one big battery, it has AA batteries. So a good idea is to have rechargeable small batteries, which can come in handy even for other devices, maybe. Then I bought for this trip specifically an SSD, external hard drive, and then some extra memory cards. There are some essentials that you would travel with no matter what, so passport copies, printed visa in this case. I would recommend always have the copy of your passport on you, and to leave your passport safely somewhere at a hotel or a guest house. Then the confirmation of your booking for the accommodation that could be useful at the airport. This time I also purchased an health/travel insurance. And then another essential, it's a reusable water bottle. My colleague had a filtering system, so I didn't need to buy one of those filters that are like at least 50 euros. And what I would recommend is also to bring a thermos-like bottle, something like this, because it can get pretty hot. To have a thermos-like water bottle, it's a very good idea because it just holds whatever temperature you want it to be. The other possibility is to buy plastic water bottles and then pour them in here, so that like the plastic bottles, of course, they get heated and then the water doesn't taste good or something, so it's always a good idea. Some miscellaneous things that I brought that maybe wouldn't come up to your mind are a headlight or any kind of torch, actually, but it was so incredibly useful during the night. So you have to keep in mind that the sun sets at around 6 every single day of the year. As soon as it's 6, you know it is gonna get dark, pitch black, because there is barely any lighting. What I noticed is that Ethiopians don't use any torch. If you are in a bigger area, just like in Addis, for instance, and we went back home one day, it was like 7 p.m. or something, and I couldn't see a thing, and also the streets are terrible, so you really have to pay attention where you put your feet. That was a tricky part. So the fact that if you have a light people will think that you are using your phone, and that would be a good reason to attack you, to harass you. Even if it's a torch, just be careful in that case. But in Durame, in this little town where I stayed, I conducted my fieldwork. There was no problem in showing a torch walking around. A headlight is useful, especially because there's no electricity. At least once a day, for a few hours or for a few minutes, there's always a chance that you will end up without electricity. Some other things, of course, the insect repellent, so not only for mosquitoes but for insects in general. Then I brought some tape, which you never know what's gonna be needed. I brought a tape and a rope and also some hooks, because another thing that I had to bring was a mosquito net. The guest house where I was staying at didn't provide any. The problem is that I had no way to hang it. I had to be creative, and I used some hooks and some ropes and tape, and yeah, I managed somehow. Then some other miscellaneous things like flip-flops. You want them even if you're taking a shower in your own room. You might want to have flip-flops, money belt, a lot of cash, which I exchanged at the beginning of my trip with the local currency. People you will interview might prefer to be paid in cash. In some other countries, like in Tanzania, they even just accept the payment via M-Pesa. Ziploc plastic bags are a luxury, not commonly found in Ethiopia. I had a few extra and I even left them there because they really can save some food. Keep in mind, they don't have any fridges. I also brought a clothesline. A little trick, you cannot drink water from the tap, so there are two options for brushing your teeth. One is just you have your reusable bottle or a plastic one, and you just pour some water on a toothbrush. But the other good idea that I got from a friend of mine who I lived with in Kenya, Mombasa, was that once you have to do it every single day for many years, you realize how much water you're wasting just pouring it on the top of the toothbrush. She had this trick of making a little hole on a plastic water bottle, and she would just squeeze it a little bit so it would be a little bit more powerful. A smaller amount of water, you would direct it on the toothbrush. You would waste less water, basically. You want to have a water bottle right next to the tap at all times, so that also it reminds you that you cannot drink that water. So you just use that water to wash your hands or wash your clothes, but not to drink or to brush your teeth with. And finally, I always have a sewing kit, which is always useful. Regarding clothing, so it depends on the weather. In my case, during the day it was very hot, and during the evenings it was quite chilly. So during the day I would use some cotton or linen shirts, even sleeveless shirts. I would always bring a scarf with me so that if needed, I would interview someone or I would have an official meeting or something, I would cover my shoulders at least. But yeah, for me it was too hot to wear sleeves. But in the evenings, I would even have to put on not only a shirt, a long sleeves shirt, and also a waterproof jacket. So yeah, it depends on that, on where you are. I would recommend being respectful. When I lived in Tanzania, to wear trousers was disrespectful. Men would notice it way more than wearing a skirt. But the thing is that usually women in Tanzania and also in Kenya, women would always wear long skirts. The point is that you shouldn't be able to see the shape of the legs. This is what I learned once I moved there. So this time, being a researcher and being a little bit more experienced, but also being uncomfortable with my own body, I still brought wide-legged trousers or something comfy no matter what, so it wouldn't show too much, like the shape of the body itself. So yeah, just pay attention to these details. And one thing that I would tell you, I didn't realize, being European, that you should not bring all green outfits. One mistake that I made once in Tanzania, it was like my very first week or something, and I had a regular t-shirt and a pair of trousers, which were both that kind of green that resembles the army. I learned the hard way. What else? Like, people will notice you no matter what, being the foreigner, and so you don't want to bring any more attention than needed to yourself. But also, you might have, as I did, you might have like special occasions. For instance, we were invited at the head of the department's house for lunch. We would have to wear some proper clothes, not just the clothes that you would use for a safari. And there were other occasions, like there was a talk at the university I attended. You don't need to bring elegant clothes necessarily, unless they are comfortable and suitable for the culture. I would recommend bringing some nice earrings or a cute scarf or something like that. And bear in mind, never show expensive jewelry. I would also avoid showing like expensive watches, because that again catches the wrong kind of attention and you might end up in trouble. And shoes wise, I decided to bring just 2 pairs of shoes. One which is my go-to shoe for all seasons except for Finnish winter. And I also have a similar kind of barefoot shoe, but it's boot-like. I brought just these 2 shoes and the flip-flops. Finally, what I wish I brought. So I regret not bringing these things. A couple of these I noticed my colleague had, and I realized maybe I should have done that. One of them is a power strip. You cannot expect to have multiple sockets necessarily in a guest house. So in this place where we stayed, there were a couple of sockets and they were also quite wobbly. Some chargers are heavy, and so that's when also the tape came in handy. I wish I had brought this power strip because it would have saved me a little bit of a headache, like having to remember I should charge the batteries of the camera, the phone number 1, phone number 2, the laptop should always be charged. Then another thing that I had and I simply forgot to put in my backpack was a triple socket. That would have also helped a lot, but it would have been way too heavy for some of these sockets. So that's when the power strip would be the best option. 2 more things. An umbrella. The umbrella is something that a backpacker wouldn't bring. You would rather have a waterproof cover for your backpack or a waterproof jacket, and that would be it. But actually the umbrella would truly help for the heat, for the sun. And finally, a card reader. So I brought multiple memory cards for the camera. The problem is that at some point I ran out of storage in my hard drive, and if I only had a card reader, I would have been able to back up my data from the memory card in the camera to another one. Another thing I wish I had brought, and I noticed my colleague had, was a Swiss Army knife, which is something that I simply thought you couldn't bring even in the checked-in luggage. So this is all I wanted to share with you. There are of course some other things that I brought, which are just regular stuff you would pack for a trip, not only in Africa but anywhere. I hope this was useful for you. I will also leave the link to the blog post that I wrote. Let me know in the comments down below. What's your experience? Have you been on fieldwork? Have you been doing anything similar to that? Are you a researcher? Have you been to Africa? Did you pack the same things I did? Is there anything I left out that you would recommend packing as well, both as a field worker and someone who travels in Africa? So thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please subscribe also, and I will see you in the next one.